Happy Friday.
Happy spring, right?
Lunchtime for you, Dan.
Yes, it is.
Breakfast for me out here on the West Coast.
And we're going to be in the 60s next week, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we had some great weather earlier this week. We're in the not good weather until July phase out here, but we've had some pretty decent weather, so can't complain, especially compared to some people in this country that are suffering.
Oh yeah.
Between rain and storms, it's just a bit crazy. What are you gonna do?
Sure.
Just a few housekeeping things for everybody. We are recording this. We will send out an email, most likely Monday morning, with the recording, with the link to Dan's calendar, because that's the CTA call to action for people that aren't partnering with us yet. And I'm going to show a PDF. We'll give you guys all that stuff. So we'll have everything in there. And if you have to leave early, you got an appointment, don't worry, you're good to go. Oh, the other thing is, if you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A versus the chat. This will have this be fluid because we're not going to have hundreds and thousands of people on here like some of our webinars. We'll probably answer most of the questions live. Dan and I will be looking at it and doing it that way, but please put them in the Q&A so there's just only one place we got to look. But that being said, let me make sure the chat is on here. If you could take a minute and just let us know in the chat if you're, because I recognize some of the names I'm looking at, you guys, but if you're if you're already partnering with CAP in some capacity, just put CAP in the chat, just so we have a feel. And if you're brand new, which is awesome, just put new or something, just so we can see who we have on here. That would be great. And I know, yeah, some of the people I recognize you guys. So I know that you're either just partnering or you're definitely in the community, but this is meant to be for new people and people that are existing. It's really supposed to be just a dedicated time for you guys. We might have content around something specific that's going on in the college financial planning space at that time. Appeals, obviously, we all know it's big appeals time. And we're not doing a slide deck on that. We just did a webinar that you guys invited your families to, and you were invited to, very in-depth on appealing. So we're not going to hit that. If you have questions, of course, fire away. But this is really meant to be a time for you guys. If there's something just bugging you around this and you have questions or questions about partnering, you can always reach out to us as well at info@collegeaidpro.com. And we have, and I'm going to put that in the chat right now. We have a team that the support team does nothing but monitor that. It's Monday through Friday. And we're very intentional about getting back to people quickly. So definitely leverage that too. So it looks like, Dan, we have a bunch of new people. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And some existing. So that's great. That's great.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. So let's just take a minute. We'll do quick intros because some of you guys know us and some of you don't. I'm Peg Keogh. I am the Director of Education at College Aid Pro. I joined College Aid Pro in 2021. I come from the financial industry, was a financial planner, financial advisor. And then when my kids, I have twins, hit high school, I pretty much did this deep dive into how does all this work, not the saving for college, but all the other stuff. And I was shocked at how complicated it is. Big reason why we all are here today, right? And so I just had this aha moment that I could focus on this specific part of financial planning. And that's what I did. So I started my own business in 2014 called Way to the Quad. And I've actually partnered with hundreds of IECs. We have I'm outside of Seattle. We have this awesome group up here, Seattle Area College Counselors. So I know a lot of my buddies from up here, but have gotten to know IECs all over the country. And it's just been a perfect marriage because, I always say there's academic, personal, and financial fit. And I'm the financial fit girl. I don't touch that other stuff. And I love the partnership. It works really well. So that's who I am. I will let my buddy here, Dan Bizig, take over. He's got a very cool background where he can relate to you guys in a special way, actually, that I can't. So.
Yeah, thanks, Peg. Again, welcome, everybody. Super excited that you're here for this inaugural get-together of all of us. And so my background, I actually spent 25 years as a financial planner. And somewhere in that mix, I had actually, I'll tell you when it happened. It was back in 2006. I had I had a client who was a financial planning client come to me and suddenly discovered that he only had $5,000 saved for college. And it was one of those aha moments like, what the heck? Why didn't you have these conversations with him? And that led me to jump into the college side of things. And very quickly, I fell in love with it. So I've been an independent educational consultant for 17 years now. I actually sold off my insurance and investment business about 7 years ago now. And so I'm fully invested in what we do as IECs, love what we do in the whole process. And that's my background. I've also been working with College Aid Pro now for a year, came in on board actually right at this time with appeals. And just super excited to support you all, both old and new, anybody who's on the platform using whatever the options are by going through that. So just super excited to have you.
Yeah. And we already have a question. A bunch of you probably got an email this week about partnering. Funny, we talk about partnering with you, and then we sent out an email about you partnering with us. And so there's one question in there. I just wanted to acknowledge that question. I see it. We'll talk about that live. So we'll go through all of that. And if people didn't get that email, then we can get into some detail on it. Whatever questions you guys have, we're happy to answer. What I want to start with, since we do have a lot of new people on here, what I'd love to do is just quickly cover the different ways to partner and just give you guys, when I joined College Aid Pro in September 2021, I said to the team, so how are you guys partnering with IECs? And they said, really not. And I'm like, we really should. These are great people that are doing great work. And so I spearheaded this because I know a lot of you guys, and we came up with a framework. And so let me share this of how we could support you. And then actually the second bucket, number 2 here, actually came from you guys. I had IECs saying, hey, I'd like to cover the cost of this. So let me just quickly go over this. There's 3 different ways that seems like one of those, or 2 of them for some people, really lands as a way that we can support you. So I'll start over in bucket 3, which is typically, that's not the one that most IECs fall in, but the ones that do self-identify and they're just all over it, which is great. So that's a be the expert bucket. That's where if you're already doing financial fit, Dan reached out to me. I don't know how many years ago, Dan, 5 years, 6 years. We knew each other from an organization. We were volunteering, and he said, hey, can you maybe do my financial stuff? And I was like, sure, let's talk about it. And he said, what are you using? And I showed him CAP because I actually beta tested this. I met the guys when they were beta testing. And the more he learned about it, he was like, I'm sorry, Peg, but I just want to do this. I said, no apologies, go for it.
Yeah, that was May 1st, 2019 is when I started using it on my own.
Yeah. So that's Dan. Like, he does this in his practice. And so we have software that you subscribe to, typical sort of deal you guys are used to with College Planner Pro and all that fun stuff. If it'll resonate, you can talk to Dan about that. We'll give you the link to set up a free chat with him. The other 2 buckets, honestly, are where most IECs fall. I know this is important, and I don't want to do this. Just like me, I don't sit down with a student like you guys do and talk about what they love and what they want to major in and what they want on a campus. That's just not my thing. And a lot of IECs are like, yeah, that's where I am on the financial side. And I totally get that. So bucket 2 actually came about because we had bucket 1 and bucket 3. And then IEC said to me, well, Peg, like, I'm charging a nice piece of change for my packages. I don't want to charge my clients more. So I might raise my rates a little next year, or I might just eat it. They all decided where they wanted to fall. What if I want to offer this partnership and it's part of my package? So that's bucket 2. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Dan's going to be in the software and we'll show you what this means. And this PDF is going to be in your follow-up, so you'll have it. Oh, Dan, and let's not forget to talk about the webinar series too. Yeah. And then the first bucket is, yes, I want to make my clients aware of this, but I'm not going to treat them. And honestly, a lot of ICs are new. They're building their business. They could be brand new. Some of the people we talk to, they've just finished the training. And so they're like, I get it. I'll go to bucket 2 at some point, but bucket 1 is where I land right now. So we can meet you wherever it works for you. a lot of IECs, and Daniel, since he's the key point man on this now, talking to you guys, some of them have bucket 1 and 2, right? So it doesn't just have to be one. So just high level overview. We can get in the weeds on this for sure, one-on-one. We're happy to do that. But those are the ways to partner right now. And we're totally open to your feedback too. If you've got ideas around this, you're the ones we're trying to support. So we're totally open to any feedback on this as you dig in. But I just wanted to high level go over that so that everybody's got that in their head. So Dan, you wanna?
Yeah, so let's take it. So think of it this way. If you indeed have the software or you're considering the MyCap software, and by the way, I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it. I think it is a game changer for years and years in my practice. And just so you know, I cover the same thing you do. I cover 4 areas. I do what's called the college money talk, career identification, college selection, the admissions process, and the financial aid forms. So I help my families do their FAFSAs, their CSS profiles. Peg helped with that too in her practice in the past. But the number one thing I do is I always bring up the money talk. I want to get it right out on the table. And some of you may be saying in your own practice as well, I only work with higher income, higher net worth families. And I'll tell you something, the software is dynamite to work with them as well because of the fact that it actually shows the scholarships that the students can get. And I'm just letting you know that I'm a huge fan. I use it with every family. It doesn't matter if they're making $500,000 per year or if they're making $50,000 per year. It doesn't matter. Everybody goes through it. I just think that you need to make it part of who you are and what you talk about, and also understand that it's the best part about the way the process is set up, because you don't have to be the money expert. If that scares you to death about being pulled into talking about 529 plans and tax planning and things like that, no problem. Because what the MyCap does is it allows you to actually be able to get in there and have your clients fill in all their financial details. And by the way, if they choose not to share that with you, it's not the end of the world. You can still use the software strictly for the scholarship search tools that are on it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually share my screen with you here so that you can see what we're talking about. I'm hoping, by the way, that everybody on this has already gone and set up your own MyCap account. If you haven't, I encourage you to, but I want to give you a little caveat. Make sure that you use a personal email, not your business email, please. The reason being is because in the future, if you decide to partner with us, which we hope you will, then you're going to run into a situation where we've got to have a conversation about which email is going to go where. So just start off from the beginning, take it for a test ride and do things like that. But what you need to see is—
Yeah, let me just interrupt you for 1 sec, Dan. I'm just putting in the chat the link for you guys, and you could just click on it and it'll open in another tab for later, because you can set up your free MyCap account from that link.
Perfect. Thanks, Peg. Yeah, so you can see the basics of as far as what the program does, and I'll be happy to go into more detail with you if you set up an appointment with me, by the way. But I also I just believe that you should ask everybody that simple question: how are you guys planning on paying for college? And what are you going to do if the price comes in higher than you were expecting? Have those conversations. How would you like to be introduced to a tool that'll give you total transparency as far as what you're going to do in this situation? And it'll also help your students see what their chances are of getting scholarships. Folks, I'm telling you, those are powerful. Those are powerful opportunities for you to be able to use this as a tool. And as Peg said, whether you go with option number 1, option number 2, option 3, it really doesn't matter. The thing that matters is that you're having the affordability conversation with every single family, because I bet you can relate to this situation. 1 of 2 things happens. Family says, if my son or daughter gets into XYZ university, we'll figure it out. The problem with figuring out is often they really haven't figured it out, which means it leads to loans. And option number 2 is that they really never ever got around to having the money talk. And so suddenly when these schools start flowing in the spring, they deal with the shock and awe that comes from colleges that are out of their budget. I do want to take this a little different direction, which is I want to show you 2 enhancements that are out of this world. Folks, nobody's doing this type of thing, especially the second piece of the puzzle. But the CAP software now has, the MyCap software, has the ability for you to have your families upload their financial aid offer letters from the colleges. So think about it this way. It's in a PDF format. All we do is we click this little translate the letter. And so it's going through its magic behind the scenes. It's actually looking at that offer, and it's trying to grab specific things. It's trying to grab merit scholarships. It'll grab the student loans if those were listed on that offer. And you can see this successfully did it. And so when we go into this now, when we go down here, it shows the cost of attendance. But see right here, it shows that there's a $10,000 merit-based scholarship that was received. Now, in this particular offer, this college, which was Miami University up in Ohio, did not list loans. Not that they wouldn't be a funding option for this family if they had to do it, but I like the fact that they didn't put it on there. I also like the fact that the offer letter didn't have any Parent Plus loans, because we really don't like that. And I think you guys would agree with us that it's the worst when they throw that in there and try to convince a family that, oh, you don't have to spend any money to send your son or daughter to our school. So that's step one, is this translate and compare. So think about it. You've got college after college that are listed here as those come in, but here is the game changer. We now have this evaluate and appeal option. And so what this thing does is it takes a look at the information that was put in. So I want to be very clear. You've heard the phrase junk in, junk out. The whole idea is if your families have put junky financial details or junky academic details about their student in at the beginning, they're not going to get the clear directives that they need. So make sure that all of your families are effectively using this tool, that they're putting the accurate information in there. But look at this. What this is saying is it's got this little thing here called appeal potential, and it says less likely. Why is that? It's because the award amount is higher than what we would expect. It goes on to say, congratulations, you received a better financial aid package than we anticipated. And one more, you can still appeal, but it does not look like the school is trying to shortchange you. Now think about that. Wouldn't that be nice to have for every single one of your families, where they've got total clarity as to whether or not they have the ability to go back to that college and appeal? Game changer, folks. I'm just telling you, it is absolutely that. And it even goes on and it says, okay, if you're going to appeal, what are some of the things that you may do? Is it an amount award that you should ask for, or is it unique circumstances? And by the way, we've got these little question marks here. If you click it, it just helps to give some direction. So it's helping your families from the beginning, specifically, of course, we're talking in the senior year at this point, to know whether or not they've got a fair offer from those colleges. And let's face it, we have to do everything we can to make them better consumers of the college process. That's really the mission that we're on through College Aid Pro, is trying to help with that. Peg, did you want to say anything about that at all?
Yeah, there's some nuances of this that you have to have the schools on your dashboard for this to work. And as Dan was saying, just because it might be a little confusing because we're not doing a full tutorial of this, up in the top right corner, it says profile. If you scroll up there, Dan, yeah, that's where basically when they set up their account, they're asked onboarding questions, and then they can go in here into the personal info and they can tweak stuff. So that's what Dan's saying. Some people go through and they don't really answer the questions. So then we can't effectively say, hey, is this a good offer or not? If they put zeros for their income, or you know what I'm saying? You guys understand that, right? So sometimes families, they do that. They whiz through it. And the part that Dan's on now, like this is actually my favorite because I'm a planner, right? I'm a financial planner by background. And this is what I think one of the things that makes us really different is that we ask the families, when the parents, when they're onboarding, the last question is, how much can you afford for a year of school? And some people will jump on meetings with me, and I'm sure Dan's heard this too, and they'll say, you know what, Peg, I just didn't know what to say. And I'm like, that's awesome, because now you're thinking about it. That, like Dan said, having that college money, eventually you have it with their child, ideally, right? But sometimes the parents have to have it if they're divorced, if they're married, whatever, or a single parent needs to start thinking about it. I just got off a meeting yesterday with a family and their child wants to go to this kind of expensive private school. And I'm like, what do you have saved? Nothing. So we're strategizing around loans when really the child should be going to another school, but they just didn't plan. And that's our whole deal, is to get parents educated when they're beginning the process. For whatever reason, parents are really good at finding you guys. They're really good at finding IECs and knowing, I need to deal with this, but with the financial, and I have a lot of theories as to why they like to bury their head in the sand. It's scary. They don't feel smart about it. They just figure I'll deal with it later. But unlike retirement, it rears its ugly head when your child's a senior in high school and you can no longer drift. You have to deal with it. And we help people absolutely fall of senior year. But ideally, we want them to be seeing, Dan's put up my second favorite part of this whole process, the affordability. Like, we really want them to see, what does this, we project net cost. So we're like a net price calculator for all these different schools, right? Then we don't stop there though. Then we say, hey, this is a 4-year expense, hopefully only a 4-year expense. We multiply it by 4. We put in an inflation factor, not 7% like Stanford just came out, lower than that. But then we say, okay, that's Northwestern. You're looking at 210.5 basically. What can you afford? Well, you told us you could afford 80 over 4 years. That's a big chunk, right? That's a big chunk. And then we say, this is what it's going to look like over a 10-year repayment and a 25-year. And oh, you know what? As a computer science and info services major, this is about what you're going to net graduating from Northwestern. Wow, that's a nice net there. Whoa, that's some sweet money there.
Yes, it is.
And that's a net. That's a net. Then they can see order of magnitude. And honestly, whenever I do webinars a lot with Matt Carpenter, and he says, this is great for the student to see because they don't understand loans, which is valid. But I also say this is great for parents to see, because you guys know, like, parents a little bit lose their mind in this process because it's their kids and they want to make them happy. And sometimes they think about doing things that are not prudent from a financial standpoint. So the earlier they can see this and understand, I've been through this hundreds and hundreds of families, it really helps parents take a deep breath and say, I don't love what I'm seeing for every school, but at least I know. And this scenario, the 4 schools that Dan has up, obviously Miami University has the least funding gap, and it doesn't have to all be loans. Maybe people will switch things around in their life and there's home equity. There's different pieces they can leverage, but sometimes you'll see 0 on here, or you'll see 10,000 of a funding gap. So we're not, and I'll speak for Dan because I know he would say the same thing. We're not here to tell them, oh, take that school off your list. I never tell families that. I just tell parents, hey, realize the projected affordability of this school. You might have a few that are not super affordable, and you sit down with your child and say, hey, you're going to have to do a side hustle and find private scholarships because you're not going to get need-based aid and they don't offer a lot of merit, or whatever the conversation is, so that they can tell their kids. It also avoids this friction second semester, senior year, where you have kids that are mad. So it's like, I did all the work, I applied, I got in, and now there's an issue. That is all avoidable. And that's what we're trying to help give that piece to your practice. You don't have to deal with it. And Dan, not to get too far in the weeds, but our partners, a lot of them want to access the tool, right? And parents will actually go in with their kids and set up their MyCap, but we set up what we call collaborate mode so that you can actually, and with their permission, right? You tell your families you're going to have this, you will log in and see exactly what we're looking at, except for that profile tab. So where the income and all the stuff that they onboarded, you won't see that. And that's, again, very intentional, and feedback as we were developing this feature said most IECs, I don't want to see that. And a lot of parents don't necessarily want you to see that. I'm super comfortable talking income and saying, I want to see your tax returns. That's what I do, just like you guys sit down with the kids and work your magic. That's high level, gives you a good feel for what's in there, because we get the question a lot. I haven't seen it yet today, but how are you different than Tuition Fit? With our uploading of award letters, we're getting very similar. That's very similar. I know Mark personally, he's an awesome guy, very similar to what he's doing. But what we're ending up doing here is we're making proprietary net price projections, and it just gets better and better the more awards that we get in here. And the award piece is new, right? This season, it's new. So we're just really pushing to get as many, even people that just upload all your awards, pay it forward for the families we're going to keep supporting for the next few decades or whatever, because then we can just get it. It helps put parents in the driver's seat and be proactive in this process instead of reacting to the colleges and even if they got money, it's still not enough. Like all of that can be looked at ahead of time. Sorry, I went on a big
No,
rant.
that's awesome. Are you kidding me? That's
You
fantastic.
can tell this is
I'm
what
just
gets
a
me
little
up.
bit passionate about this
Yeah,
stuff.
it gets me up in the morning. Let me look at the questions here because, like I said, I'd love to. Yes, I love. Yeah, it's good. Somebody said, can people see the questions? I'm not sure about that.
I
So
don't think they can, no.
then let me read it. Somebody said, junk in and junk out with Dan's comment. Can families go back and revise their numbers? Absolutely.
Best
All
part
you
about
do
it.
is go in on the profile tab, you hit edit, and actually they can do planning. Some of them are like, what if I retire next year, Peg? They can go in there and make those changes at any time. So yeah, absolutely. It's not, so when people onboard, if they're not sure, they can just put 0 and come back and look at that later. We had a question, Dan, and I know what College Kickstart is, but I'm not super familiar with it. They wanted to know, Mark wanted to know about how we're different. Are you familiar with that enough to answer that?
I'm a little bit familiar with it, but I'll tell you the one thing, in fact, it's ironic that you're asking that question right now, because I had a conversation just yesterday with an IEC. And her comment was, she said that she initially was using College Kickstart, but the problem is for her area, a lot of students are going test optional. And for example, for the scholarship search on there, it doesn't do a great job versus ours does. Ours has the ability to show test optional scholarships and things like that. So you need to know that's definitely an advantage that comes with our platform.
You
So
want to just show, you want to just go into a school off the dashboard
Yeah.
and tell them. We have a merit scholarship database in here. So for these schools, if you click, you'll see the awards. And if you're in collaborate mode, you can leverage this. Yeah, but if you scroll to the bottom, so we're projecting a $28,000 scholarship. But now at Bama, you can see all the different awards they have. We don't always project if it's competitive and we can't do it. We don't. As you guys know, or probably know, Alabama has a lot of automatic scholarships, but you see it's all in there. So it's a really nice tool for families too, that if their child has a certain SAT score, if the colleges are transparent, it's all about them being transparent, and we grab this information, they might see, oh, we got 15, there's one for 20 with a little bit higher ACT or SAT. Maybe test prep makes sense, or that kind of thing. And Dan's highlighting, last year we did a white paper on merit aid transparency, and we graded schools, and Bama's got an A because they are very straightforward how they give merit. We're not trying to shame the colleges. We're just trying to say, hey, transparency is the name of the game for families to work through this process better, and trying to get the ones that aren't as good at it maybe to up their game and be more transparent. So hopefully that helps, Mark. That gives you some insight into that. Let me see. We had another question. Is there enough info on each school whether scholarships are stackable? As most schools don't stack, right? Merit aid, they might offer need and merit if there's still need left after the merit hits up. I know there's some certain scholarships that are stackable. We're getting dialed in to start showing that. I don't know if we have, do you know, Dan? I don't think that's in yet. Like we basically
Right.
have 3 full-time data people that do nothing but, not a job I would love, honestly, but they love it. They love it. It's their sweet spot of really Wendy Nelson, which some of you guys might know that name. She used to have a merit scholarship website, and then she joined CAP right about the time I did. It's a very similar sort of evolution into CAP. And she's all about dialing this stuff in and getting it really well dialed in. And as we make enhancements, we'll let you know. The stackable, I think, is on the plate. It's not, I don't think it's in yet. And then
yeah, can I also make a comment about that? Because the other thing that's tough about the stackable is it's the human element, meaning it's something that we couldn't possibly know. We run into the same situation with some of the options that are out there, right? Like the academic common market and the WUI options, where that, quite frankly, that's where you're also in the driver's seat. You can hop in here and you can change scholarships out based on what the students are doing. We had a case like this where one of our IECs took it for a test ride and went ahead and put her own students' information in there. Of the 13 colleges that she put in, 12 were within $100 or so of the exact number, which is amazing, folks. Remember, with all the moving parts that are going on there. But in addition to that, she turned around and she said the other one that wasn't in there was the University of South Carolina. And that's because the student was going to study marine biology or marine science there. And there's an academic common market exchange, which is where you can get in-state tuition. We would have never, ever known that's what was going to go on there, that was a possibility. But it's possible that within that college, for example, there could be the academic common market that you could click on and then have that kind of information. So I did want to show this too, by the way. Each of these does have this drop down that goes into detail about the scholarship. So in this case, this is an automatic scholarship based on these criteria. So it really does try to help give the clarity as far as what's going on. All right.
Answering a question here.
Okay. I wanted to just quickly, best practices. Remember, again, these are projections. One of the things that is going to happen ultimately, as we've already disclosed to you, is as those financial aid offers come in and the merit offers come in, that could really help to clarify everything that's going on. But we have to remember that there are, again, colleges that do a great job of being totally transparent. That's why I love, and I know Peg does too, this merit transparency grade, because then you can look at it and say, okay, what are the chances this is going to be? Because even Miami University that I've used as my example here, they get a transparency grade of a C. Why? Because they've got a range of scholarships that a student might get, which means it puts it in, or puts the admissions office in control of how much money the student is going to receive. So just,
and you know what I just made a note on the follow-up email. I'll make sure that we've got a link to that white paper. If you guys are interested, then you can check that out. Yeah. Sorry, Dan. I just kind of, when the thought comes in my head, I just kind of share it. So
that's all right. So the other thing, so best practices, we already talked about junk in, junk out. Make sure the information is accurate, both financial and academic. The other best practice that I would say is use the software if you need to be the bad guy. And I really do mean that. It doesn't have to be mom and dad that are saying no or you saying no. It could be the software that's saying no. Look, let's just go into the affordability conversation with the student and help them understand. We've got $80,000 and this school is going to work, but over here, it's not going to work or it may not work. So allow the software to help have those kinds of big time conversations so that as families are making their plans, that they can clearly see what's going on with that. Okay. And the only other thing would be make sure that you take it for a test ride yourself. Know what you're showing your families. Make sure that you work through those details so that you're not caught off guard with it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to marketing ideas. I will tell you, so I've been in this position as far as working with IECs since January the 1st, maybe a little bit before then, but really heavy duty since January the 1st. It's been amazing to me, the number of folks that I'm talking to all across the United States that are starting to pick up on this thing. And why is that? It's real simple. Is the price of college going down? Heck no, it's not. It's always going to be an issue that we've got to deal with our families. And granted, again, there are families out there that could write a check to send their kids to school wherever they want to. But you know what? The vast majority of people want to do two things. They want their students to be rewarded for their hard work. That could be getting into the more selective colleges, granted, but it also could be that they're getting scholarships. And so that's why, again, I think you've got the ability to promote yourself out there. In fact, I recently had just a great interchange with a new IEC down in Florida, and she's leading with this. This is really her conversation about trying to set herself apart from the rest of the crowd, is that, hey, we're not going to just talk about the admission side, but we're going to talk about the funding side and the scholarship side so that you've got some clarity there. So I think the marketing idea is there. You become the person in your community that's known for talking about these kinds of things. I keep hearing, and Peg, I know you're in the same boat, from more and more IECs that are saying this is suddenly becoming a conversation. People are talking about it. They're especially talking about it on the East Coast and the West Coast because you folks are getting hit with huge home equity values. And so when you start trying to look at these colleges that are CS profiles that use home equity in the calculation, it really changes the dynamics of that conversation. Again,
and we actually have that dynamic built into our data. Like we know we've got 4 different tranches of how the CS profile schools look at home equity. If I had my sample account up, I've got Northwestern right next to Stanford, and it's a dramatic difference in net cost for a family purely because Stanford doesn't look at home equity. And so I try, when we're teaching parents, I try and get them to realize it can be a game changer, and parents might have in their mind, they might have decent income, but sitting on tons of home equity, and it can be a game changer for Stanford. So this is not just a glorified spreadsheet. Like, we've got, between all the people in CAP and the founders and myself, and decades and decades of experience in this space, and it's built in. For example, like a UCLA right here, we don't just say, oh, they meet this amount of need, this amount in grants, because they self-report that. So this student's going to get that, because they won't, right? An out-of-state kid will get maybe a little grant money if they've got almost Pell Grant level EFC. Otherwise, they've got 40,000 of need. UCLA isn't going to give an out-of-state kid a dime of need-based grants. And we're going to show that. And parents will say, hey, there's something wonky here. It doesn't work. And I'll say, no, we have built in the reality of it. So then again, we're creating informed consumers in this space. And actually, since we've come out with this, we've had some IECs, which is great, come back and go, yeah, there's something wrong here. It's not matching the net price calculator. And I will say definitely more often than not, when we get in the weeds, myself and the data team on it, it turns out that the net price calculator is actually outdated. Actually, I had a family this year that wanted to go ED to a school. And I went in there and I said, you have pretty significant need, like 30,000 of grant. And the net price calculator was telling her, you're going to get nothing. And I went in there and tried every scenario. I couldn't get that net price calculator to show any grants from a school that meets 100% of need. And that was their go-to for the family. I said, ask for a pre-read. They wouldn't do it. They said, go to our net price calculator. What I told her, I think you're going to get money, but apply ED following this and feel good about it and be able to sleep at night. They applied, they got 31,000 grants. She was shocked and said, oh my gosh, I made decisions based on other net price calculators to take it off the list, and maybe we shouldn't have. So I'm not saying that all net price calculators are bad. It's a federally mandated instrument. And honestly, there's nobody making sure they're updated. There's nobody making sure they're visible, and they're good. So a lot of schools, when you bring it up, they cringe. Like, they didn't really want to do it. They had to. And so that's not the answer to send students and parents to a net price calculator, because it might be great and it might give them the clear, accurate visibility they need, but it might, in this situation, actually do the opposite, which is bad. The school basically is going to lose applicants because their net price calculator is inaccurate, and that's their problem. But it's just been an interesting thing that we've learned as we've developed this tool. But we had a great comment in chat about, so I saw that you showed the appeals part, Dan showed that, but how does this help a student when they're at the beginning and looking at schools that are affordable? So you want to go up to the dashboard, Dan? So
Yep,
basically
that's
we were showing that because that's like our newest feature, but it's a great question. And if you're new to MyCap, it's a very logical question. So basically, when they onboard, they're going to see their EFCs, which at the top. So they immediately start understanding what kind of family they are. If the EFCs are all 100,000, right, then they know immediately, okay, I'm not a need-based family. Then they can see that, and they can see projections of merit, but then they can go to the next step. So if you go to the advanced search, Dan, and we can just show you the advanced search. This is where they actually are shopping for colleges with what matters to them in mind. So Dan, if you want to go through a search and just show them, like, you can pick different filters, works for that family. This is where some of these are academic and personal fit, size of school, location, major. So you can go in and do that, which is fine. There's other places. Do you want to put in a major, Dan?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then we'll just
put business in. How about that?
And then if we search, so this is fine. It's not earth shattering that you can do this search. But what's great is what happens on the next page. So now you've got these lists of schools that fall into your filter, but then you can say, I know I don't have need-based aid eligibility. I want to see the best schools where my child is going to get merit aid at. So then you can click scholarship money. It's going to take that list and it's going to flip it. And then if you click on the little caret there, it gives, we're projecting 25,000 from Chapman. This is not a list of schools that are good for merit. these are a list of schools that student we are projecting the most merit in order. So this answers your question, Catherine. This is how they can use it around financial fit. So in my mind, this is not the be end all. This is the financial fit piece. And if you're working with the family, you're dealing with the academic and personal fit. There might be schools that come up here where you say that you don't like, you went to XYZ campus, this is similar. You're probably not going to this school because of the culture. That's where you guys come in. But this allows you to have your families at least come to you in the next meeting and say, hey, I did a search. What do you think of these? And you guys, if you're in collaborate mode, can go in and do this. So that's how you use it. If you go back to the main page, Dan, it's very intentional along the left side, how we develop the software, the dashboard, shop for schools, affordability. It follows the journey there on the financial side. They find out their EFCs, they search for schools with affordability. Then they really look at the 4-year affordability. The tabs after that are all about senior year. So hopefully they've been in the software and they've been doing it. And then senior year rolls in and then they use it for the appeals. Dan nicely showed how that piece enters in. We're really trying to take them through that process. And then for you guys, you know that they're getting guidance along that. So just to chime in on how this all works, they can set up a free account. In a free account, you can put in 3 schools. That's the limit. And that advanced search, that's currently behind the paywall. We're going to do, I'm on the leadership team at CAP. So we just had a meeting in Boston a few weeks ago, and we're going to revamp this. And hopefully by the fall, it's going to look amazing. It's going to be even better. And the advanced search, there might be an option in the free version, but right now that's behind the paywall, meaning you've got to upgrade to the full platform. And that's $149 a year. And then after that, we call it Scholar. We might change that name, but that's what it's currently called. After that, it's $4.99 a month. So for parents, we made it absurdly cheap so that they don't try and time it to a year before May 1 of senior year, because we want them in here sophomore year and junior year to start understanding this. And then they can continue for $4.99 a month, however long they want. There's no contract or anything. The other option is that they book an hour. We have a team of experts. When I joined, I started doing consults because my way to the quad people, my old business, were flowing in, and they were like, wow, we need to offer one-on-one. I said, yeah, parents need this. So we started building a team, and I brought in my buddy Dan here. He's an expert. We actually have people that are at colleges. We have the director of financial aid at Sloan at MIT, Josh DeMayo. These guys, they have their jobs, but they love working with families and they love what we're doing. So they do hourly consults. So we're really building vetting very strongly, but we've got a team of at least like 8 or 9 or 10, Dan, by now.
Right. Yeah.
Experts, so we can meet the demand. So parents can always book an hour at any time. They're stressed about how to pay the bill. They're stressed about how to appeal. They can book an hour at any time. And the first time they go into the software, if they know they want to book an hour, say to have us review their financial aid forms or help them with those questions, we call it valedictorian right now. That's $2.99, but that comes with the full platform upgrade for free. So the $149 just gets thrown in. So I tell parents and IECs, if they ever want to book a meeting, and most families do, it's a no-brainer. Just book it, and then you can schedule it whenever you need it. There's no expiration, but then they get the free upgrade and they don't have to pay for 2 separately. And I mentioned to Dan, we have a whole webinar series, which I don't know if you have that PDF. If you don't, when you're talking, I'll go find it, Dan. I can share my screen. And a lot of you guys know this who are in our community already, because we invite you to invite your families to our webinars, but completely free. We walk them through all these pain points. The reason I'm sharing this too is we always offer discounts. So I always tell parents, you almost never have to pay $2.99 for an hour. We're always throwing in discounts for live registrants. And then in our follow-up, we've got discounts. The other thing, if you're doing pro bono work, if somebody just can't afford to upgrade to the $149, we tell them on webinars with thousands of people, you just email us, no questions asked. honor system. You tell us you can't afford it, we give you a coupon and we upgrade you. We don't want to leave families behind. We want everybody to get in that full platform and to be able to do this planning. So that kind of, those pieces, when you saw bucket number 2 in the PDF I shared, that's where IECs will say, I want to give the upgrade to all my families or certain families, or I want to give them an hour meeting. And then we give you the opportunity to buy that and buy it in bulk. And that's what, Dan, we bundle it and then you get discounts. And again, we have that because you guys said, hey, Peg, can you give me a price break if I pay and I buy 10 of these or 20? So it really came from the suggestion from the IEC community. So that, hopefully that answers that question.
Let me cover one thing here quickly. If you guys are sitting here spinning because you're going, oh my gosh, I love this idea, but I need to learn more about it, don't be afraid to schedule a meeting with me. And we were going to strategies to overcome any hesitancies or challenges that you have. That's why we're here, folks. That's what we're doing, is helping you to navigate your way through this process of both setting yourself up on MyCap as well as becoming familiar enough with it so that you're in good shape. We don't want you to be out there thinking that you're on an island by yourself. That's another reason why we did this whole IEC Coffee Talk, is because what we hope to have happen is some interchange for you all. If you've got ideas, for example, how to market it, share it with the folks. Don't be afraid to bring that stuff up. If you've run into a problem with it, let us know about it. We're constantly working to do everything we can to make it as seamless and easy for you to communicate the value of it to your clients. So it's a really big deal. Okay, so you talked about the webinars, Peg.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, Dan, sorry. I know I keep interrupting you. You're going to hate me. I just want to make sure we're answering all the questions because we're at 10 of. Let me just go through here.
Yeah,
how do you define a year? A year, great question. It's not a school year. It's basically if you sign up on April 1st this year, it's good till March 31st of next year. So it's totally unique renewal times for you.
Can I answer one question here? It says, my screen does not look like this, meaning the MyCap. What plan is this? I pay a monthly. You've got to be on option number 3, which is the essentials package.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, Nisha's put in some questions. You guys are on essentials. So that's, you're the expert. It's the same data, but what we're showing today is we created this beginning of 2022 so that we could reach consumers directly, because not all families are lucky enough to work with an IEC. So we wanted to reach everybody. So same data. Yours is a little bit more robust because there's an advisor guiding them, right? And we have a lot of questions with our current interface with parents because they have a lot of stress around this. So we were trying to make it so it was easy to navigate. So the people, if you have questions around, that's a great thing. You can book some time with Dan to chat through it. And if he gets too much, I can chat with you. But yeah, you guys, you're on the bucket 3 side. So that's why it doesn't look the same. I want to make sure too, that there's a question here, outside scholarships. There is a place in the how to pay, which is the final deal where you can enter that and you can see your bottom line senior year. If somebody gets an outside scholarship, there's no way to project that on the dashboard, and there's no way for us to include that up there. That's very specific to the family, but in the how to pay part, you can. And then we do have, this was all in one question, we do have some merit in there based on talent. We are always building that up. Whenever I talk to a parent or I see something, or I get an email from a school that says, hey, here's our new lineup of merit. If I see anything we don't have, I tell our data team, they get it in there. So we're just constantly making it better. As some schools they change their focus and they go less merit and more need, or vice versa. So we're constantly keeping that updated. We have ICs that will email us and say, hey, I'm seeing this. That doesn't exist anymore. And we take care of that right away. Does this software keep track of the financial health of the colleges that are recommended? Dan, go into the other information, because in the bucket 3 version of our software, we have in there.
What do you want me to do?
If you go into one of the schools off the dashboard.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
You know where we have the how much is spent per student?
Yeah. Hang on
An
a second.
endowment. I don't know if that's in MyCap though. We didn't present all the data that we present on the advisor side, because again, we don't want to overwhelm. If there's too much, it gets really hard for parents to navigate. So I've got to look and see if we have that data. I don't know that we have it in here. So Dan's going into the other info. Yeah. So let's see if my gut is we didn't have it in there. Yeah, we don't have that in there. We do have the data. If that's something that would be really helpful, we can consider having that in here, because we do have it on the advisor version of the software where it says amount spent per student, which gives you an idea of the financial, especially with COVID and schools there was that big thing about schools going under. We find it's okay to only have the IEC use the system. Okay, Dan, so I'm going to have you answer this one.
Yeah, I saw that question. And so here's the thing. I think it's important that you give total transparency. And I understand the spirit of what you're saying is the concern is that families are already overwhelmed. But honestly, the MyCap is pretty simple. You plug the information in. Remember, here's the most important thing. You are in the driver's seat as to which colleges your families are going to see if you want to be. Now, if you let them take the reins, and if they're going to run the advanced searches and they're suddenly adding all kinds of schools, that might be different. But the vast majority of IECs that I talk to love the fact that they can still do their traditional building of the college lists, and then they can go in there and they can plug it in to show the total financial transparency.
But if you're onboarding your families, then you're plugging in that you have to get all their financials to upload them, unless you just want to use it for merit and you're going to zero all that out, then you would have to put in financials. But I know we're 5 minutes up, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. The question that came in at the beginning, I want to make sure Dan and I address it. So we sent out an email. What's happened as we've moved through this process is we've had people reach out and say, hey, do you help build a college list? Do you do this? Do you do that? And it's out of the financial fit piece. And we thought, you know what? There's all these families. We have all these great partners that this is what they do. It's not our sweet spot. Let's not say, no, we don't. Let's say we do, but we have partners. Analogous to how you're using us, right? And so in the interest of being totally transparent, because that's what Dan and I are about, and we really value the relationships that we have with you guys, we put out that email. So if you didn't get it, basically the email said, we're going to start offering this advice. So we need people to step in and be our experts, right? We're not an expert in building a college list or the conversation with students that you guys have each and every day. So that's really what it's about. Our role will be, and we haven't that's why we put out the email. We wanted to see, we've got a lot of interest. Yeah. So this is going to be a pilot. We're a startup. We're constantly doing this stuff. Dan gets frustrated with all the crazy stuff. There's always something we're doing, right? And it's new, but it's exciting, right? So we wanted to see, hey, we have our valued partners out there that are interested in this. And a lot of you guys have written back and said, yeah, put me on the list. So we're delighted. We're super excited. So that's what it's about. We're in no way stepping on your toes. And Peg Keogh, Dan Bizig does it under his business, right? College and beyond. But Peg Keogh and these other financial experts are never going to sit down and say, oh, we're now offering this and I'm going to help you build a list. Rest assured, I'm going to be saying, hey, you need that? Because when we do hourly consults, I can tell if a list that's plugged into MyCap is right off of US News and World Report. And I ask the question, but I know where it comes from. And I've said this for years, even when I had my own business, you really need to talk to, if you're not at a high school where you can get the one-on-one, which a lot of counselors, that's not their job. My kids went to public school, wasn't the counselor's job. You might want to find an independent education counselor just to get your head around this, because this list, this isn't the best way to build a list. That's what we're trying to fill, right? When we hear that in a consult, that families need that support, we don't want to just ignore it because we know it's there. So that's really where we're going. So if that is something that's of interest to you, definitely let us know. The info@collegeaidpro.com, and I'll put it in the chat again. You can always reach us there. And I put a couple times in the chat Dan's scheduling link, and that'll also be in the follow-up. So don't hesitate to chat with Dan about all these different partnering pieces. You can go back into MyCap. If you want to be an expert, he'll take you over there and he'll show you that so that you can see that user experience and how it differs a little bit from what we have on the consumer side. So I think that answers that, unless anybody has any other questions about that. So hopefully, guys, this was helpful, and we'll be doing this every fourth Friday. So if there's ever a month that has 5 Fridays, it will always be the fourth Friday. You're signed up, so you know you should be getting Zoom reminders, and you're also on our list. So when we do all of our webinars, the next webinar in the series, FYI, will be the how to borrow and how to pay. And so we get in the weeds on loans and 529s and how you should be using them and all those different pieces, because that's the next piece for senior families. They appeal, they get the appeal results back. Then it's like, all right, let's bring this all together. So that's the next piece.
All right, folks, thanks for attending today. We appreciate it and look forward to seeing you again next month. Everybody have a great spring as it finally is popping on us. Take care, everyone.
And have a great weekend. Take care.